The Galactic Council chamber was the biggest room Tommy Hayes had ever seen in his life. Seriously, you could fit 10 football stadiums in there and still have room left over. Floating platforms held representatives from what looked like 100 different alien species. Some had tentacles, some had wings, and one guy looked like he was literally made out of living crystal. That crystal guy was Emperor the Lauren, and right now he was making a speech that had everyone's attention. Tommy stood next to Ambassador Kate Morrison, trying not to look as nervous as he felt. He was just an intern, fresh out of college, and this was his first real assignment with the diplomatic corps. Kate had told him to stay quiet and take notes. So far, he'd written exactly 3 words: "This is insane." Thalarin's voice boomed across the chamber without any microphone. The guy had some kind of natural amplification thing going on. For 3 centuries, my empire has stood unchallenged. Not because of our weapons, though they are formidable. Not because of our fleet, though it spans 1,000 systems. We remain undefeated because of the Ravager. A hologram materialized in the center of the chamber. Tommy's stomach dropped. The creature was massive, easily 12 feet tall, with 6 glowing eyes and claws that looked like they could slice through steel. Its body was covered in thick armored plates, and even in holographic form, it radiated pure menace. 47 species have sent their greatest warriors to challenge the Ravager, the Lauren continued. 47 species have failed. Their champions died within minutes. Some within seconds. He paused, letting that sink in. Now Earth sends diplomats, begging for trade rights and a council seat. I offer humanity the same opportunity one have offered all others. Send your champion. If they can defeat the Ravager, you will have everything you ask for. Full trading rights. A permanent council seat. Complete sovereignty. The chamber erupted in noise. Aliens were clicking, buzzing, and making sounds Tommy couldn't even describe. A reptilian delegate stood up, her scales flashing red. This is barbaric, the Lauren. Humanity has barely left their own solar system. You're sentencing them to death. I am offering them opportunity, the Lauren replied smoothly. The same opportunity extended to everyone. Is it my fault that no species has proven worthy? Tommy leaned toward Kate. Ambassador, we should decline. This is obviously a trap. Kate didn't respond. She was staring at the hologram of the Ravager with an expression Tommy couldn't quite read. Then, to his absolute horror, she stood up. We accept. The chamber went dead silent. Even the Lauren seemed surprised for a moment before his crystalline face twisted into something that might have been a smile. Excellent. I am pleased that humanity has such courage, even if it is misguided. Shall we say 1 month for you to select your champion? 1 month is acceptable, Kate said calmly. Wonderful. Thalarin's smile widened. And since humanity is so brave, let me make this more interesting. If your champion succeeds, I will not merely grant you council membership. I will abdicate my throne. I will dissolve my empire's military expansion. I will submit to Galactic Council oversight. Now the chamber really exploded. Delegates were shouting over each other. Tommy's head was spinning. Was the Lauren serious? That was his entire empire on the line. Kate's voice cut through the chaos. And if we fail? When you fail, the Lauren corrected, Earth becomes a protectorate of my empire. We will manage your planet's development. Guide your species. For your own good, of course. Tommy grabbed Kate's arm. Ambassador, you can't agree to this. That's colonization. That's exactly what we came here to avoid. Kate shook off his hand gently. I understand the terms, Emperor the Lauren. We agree. Then we have an accord. The Lauren raised one crystalline hand. The contract will be sealed in quantum binding law. Unbreakable. Unchangeable. Witnessed by the full council. Choose your champion wisely, Ambassador Morrison. Choose someone prepared to die. The session ended, and Tommy practically dragged Kate out of the chamber. His hands were shaking. What were you thinking? We don't have anyone who can fight that thing. Did you see the hologram? Did you see what it did to that Thorian warrior? It tore him apart like wet paper. Kate walked calmly down the corridor, heading toward the human embassy section. Tommy, how long have you been working with me? 3 weeks. 3 weeks. And in that time, have I ever made a decision without thinking it through? Well, no, but... Trust me. She pulled out her communication device and started scrolling through contacts. I'm not sending a warrior to fight that creature. Tommy blinked. Then who are you sending? A psychic? We don't really have those. A genius scientist with some kind of weapon? Because I'm pretty sure the Ravager has seen every weapon the galaxy can throw at it. Kate stopped scrolling and tapped a name. I'm sending someone who understands what everyone else has missed about this challenge. Everyone who's faced the Ravager has tried to beat it, kill it, dominate it. They've treated it like an enemy to be conquered. She looked at Tommy with a slight smile. I'm sending someone who'll treat it like a patient. The call connected. Tommy could see a woman's face on the screen. She was young, maybe late 20s, with dirt smudged on her cheek and hay stuck in her hair. She looked exhausted. Kate? Is that you? Girl, it's been forever. Look, I'm kind of in the middle of something. Got a wolf here that tangled with a car and it's not going well for her. Emily, I need you to come to space. The woman, Emily, laughed. Yeah, okay. Let me just finish up here, grab my spaceship from the barn and I'll be right there. I'm serious. Kate's voice was steady. I need the best animal behaviorist I know. I need someone who can look at a terrified, traumatized creature and see past the teeth and claws. I need someone who's never met an aggressive animal she couldn't help. Emily's smile faded. Kate, what are you talking about? I'm talking about saving Earth. And I'm talking about saving a creature that's been tortured for 300 years and turned into a monster. Can you do both? There was a long pause. Tommy could hear the beeping of medical equipment in the background, the soft whimpering of an injured animal. Finally, Emily spoke. Send me the coordinates. I'll be there in 24 hours. Kate ended the call and looked at Tommy. His mouth was hanging open. You're sending a vet? A veterinarian? To fight a telepathic murder beast. I'm not sending her to fight, Kate said quietly. I'm sending her to listen. To understand. To heal. She started walking again. Everyone else has tried violence. Let's try compassion and see what happens. Tommy stood in the corridor watching her go and realized something. Either Kate Morrison was the biggest genius in human history, or they were all about to watch Emily Brooks die on live galactic television while Earth lost its freedom forever. He really hoped it was the genius thing. Emily Brooks stepped off the transport shuttle and immediately tripped over her own duffel bag. Not exactly the grand entrance she'd imagined for her first time in space. A few alien tourists stared at her with their multiple eyes as she scrambled to her feet, face burning red. Yeah, this was going great so far. The space station was nothing like the movies. She'd expected sleek white corridors and floating robots. Instead, it looked more like a crowded shopping mall had a baby with an airport terminal. Aliens of every shape and size hurried past her, speaking in languages that sounded like everything from bird songs to grinding gears. The air smelled weird too, like someone had mixed cinnamon with motor oil. Kate found her standing in the middle of the concourse, staring up at a floating jellyfish creature that was apparently selling fruit. Emily, you made it. They hugged, and Emily realized just how much she'd missed her old college roommate. Kate looked different now. More polished. More official. The kind of person who belonged in a place like this. Emily glanced down at her own flannel shirt and jeans, still stained with wolf blood from yesterday. So, you gonna tell me what's actually going on? Because your phone call was super vague and also completely insane. Kate's smile faded. Let's get you to the embassy first. You'll want to sit down for this. 20 minutes later, Emily was sitting in a conference room, watching a holographic recording, and trying very hard not to throw up. The screen showed a massive armored creature destroying a warrior who looked like he was made of living rock. The fight lasted maybe 10 seconds. The warrior didn't even get close before the creature's claws went through him like he was made of butter. That's the Ravager, Kate explained. 12 feet tall. Telepathic. Has psychic abilities that can literally liquefy internal organs. It's killed every single challenger sent against it for the past 3 centuries. Emily watched the recording loop again. Her hands were clenched so tight her knuckles had gone white. And you want me to what, exactly? Pet it? Teach it to shake hands? I want you to do what you do best, Kate said quietly. Look past what everyone else sees. A young guy in a suit, Kate introduced him as Tommy, her assistant, spoke up. With all due respect, Dr. Brooks, this isn't a domestic dog. This thing has been engineered to kill. It's a weapon. Emily finally tore her eyes away from the hologram. Can you play that again? But slower this time. Focus on the creature, not the warrior. Kate manipulated the controls. The scene played in slow motion. The Ravager appeared and Emily leaned forward, studying every detail. There. Stop. Go back 5 seconds. The image froze just as the Ravager first spotted its opponent. Emily pointed at the screen. Look at its body language. See how its weight shifts backward. How its ears, or whatever those are, pin flat against its head. That's not aggression. That's fear. Tommy looked at her like she'd grown a second head. Fear? It's about to kill someone and you think it's scared? It's terrified, Emily said firmly. She'd seen this exact behavior 1,000 times before. The abused pit bull that bit because it expected pain. The traumatized horse that kicked because it had learned humans meant suffering. This is a fear response. Fight or flight syndrome, except it can't flight because it's trapped. So it fights. It always fights because that's the only option it's ever been given. She stood up and started pacing. Her mind was already working through possibilities, running through scenarios. Who takes care of it? Who feeds it? Can I talk to the handlers? The Krellian handlers refused to speak with us, Kate admitted. Thalarin's orders. They're not going to help. Fine. Then I need access to everything else. Feeding schedules, medical records if they exist, the electromagnetic frequencies of its enclosure, temperature settings, lighting cycles. Everything. Tommy was typing frantically on his tablet. Why electromagnetic frequencies? Because some animals are sensitive to them. Can cause stress, aggression, anxiety. If they've been keeping this creature in an environment that's basically torture, that's going to affect its behavior. Emily was already thinking 3 steps ahead. I also need to know about its home planet. What was the natural environment? What did its species eat before they were captured? How did they socialize? She spent the next 3 days barely sleeping. Kate got her access to the station's xenobiology database, and Emily devoured every piece of information she could find. The Ravager came from a planet called Skelly's Prime, a world that had been strip-mined by Thalarin's empire 200 years ago. The species was believed extinct now. The Ravager was probably the last of its kind. That hit Emily harder than she expected. This wasn't just an abused animal. It was the last survivor of a genocide, stolen as a baby, tortured into becoming entertainment for an empire's ego. She found herself crying at her desk at 2 in the morning, staring at a grainy image of what Skelly's Prime used to look like before the mining operations destroyed it. Tommy found her there. He set down a cup of coffee without saying anything for a minute. You're really going through with this? Yeah. You could die. You know that, right? This isn't like your wolf back home. You can't just sedate it and hope for the best. Emily took the coffee gratefully. When I was 16, I volunteered at a kill shelter. There was this dog there, a German Shepherd mix. He'd been used in dog fights, beaten half to death, starved. He was scheduled to be put down because everyone said he was too dangerous, too aggressive, too broken. She smiled sadly. I worked with him for 3 months, every day after school. He bit me twice, drew blood both times. But I kept coming back because I could see something everyone else missed. He didn't want to hurt anyone. He was just so scared and in so much pain that he didn't know what else to do. What happened to him? His name was Max. I adopted him. He lived with my family for 12 years. Died peacefully in his sleep surrounded by people who loved him. Emily met Tommy's eyes. Everyone told me I was stupid for trying. That I'd get myself killed. That some animals are just born bad. They were wrong. Max wasn't bad. He was hurt. There's a difference. Tommy nodded slowly. You think the Ravager is like Max? I think the Ravager is exactly like Max. Just a lot bigger and with way more teeth. On the 3rd day, Emily told Kate she was ready. Well, not ready exactly. You couldn't really be ready for something like this. But she'd done all the research she could. She had a plan. Sort of. It was a terrible plan that would probably get her killed, but it was better than nothing. I need them to turn off the electromagnetic barriers 60 seconds before I go in, she said. Kate frowned. Why? Because those frequencies are probably driving it crazy. Have been for centuries. I need it to have a minute of relief before I enter. A minute where the constant noise in its head stops. It'll be disoriented, confused. That's when I make my approach. That's also when it could tear you apart before you take 3 steps, Tommy pointed out. Yeah, Emily admitted. That's definitely a possibility. Kate studied her friend's face. You don't have to do this. We can find another way. No, you can't. The contract is signed. And even if we could back out, what happens to the Ravager? It stays in that cage, being tortured, being forced to kill until it finally dies. Emily shook her head. I became a vet because I believe every animal deserves compassion. Every single one. Even the scary ones. Especially the scary ones. The challenge was set for the next morning. Emily tried to sleep but couldn't. She kept thinking about Max. About all the animals she'd helped over the years. About the ones she couldn't save. She thought about her mom back on Earth who didn't even know where she was. About her little brother who used to help her rescue injured birds. At dawn, Kate came to her room. The whole galaxy is watching. 500 million viewers across 100 planets. Emily laughed, but it sounded shaky even to her own ears. No pressure then. You can still back out. And let Earth become a colony? Let that creature stay in hell? Not happening. Emily stood up and grabbed her jacket. Let's go save the world. And maybe make a new friend. The arena was absolutely massive. Emily stood at the entrance gate, her heart hammering so hard she could hear it in her ears. Above her, observation decks wrapped around the entire space, packed with aliens from every corner of the galaxy. She could see their faces pressed against the transparent barriers, some excited, some horrified, all waiting to watch her die. Tommy stood beside her, pale as a ghost. Last chance to run away screaming. I won't judge. Actually, I'll probably join you. Emily tried to smile, but her face felt frozen. Through the gate's energy field, she could see the Ravager chained to a massive pillar in the center of the arena. Even from here it looked impossibly huge. Its 6 eyes glowed like hot coals, and its claws scraped against the metal floor, leaving deep gouges. The sound echoed through the space like nails on a chalkboard. 60 seconds, she reminded Kate. Turn off the electromagnetic barriers for exactly 60 seconds before you open the gate. Kate nodded, her hand hovering over the control panel. Emily, if anything goes wrong, if you feel like you're in danger, there's an emergency extraction team standing by. No, Emily interrupted. If I call for help, if I show fear or panic, it's over. The Ravager will know I'm a threat and it'll attack. This only works if I stay calm. Completely calm. No matter what happens. High above them in the Royal Observation Box, Emperor Thalarin's voice boomed across the arena. People of the galaxy, we are gathered here to witness humanity's challenge. Ambassador Morrison has selected her champion. A female named Emily Brooks, who claims no military training, carries no weapons and possesses no psychic abilities. He paused, and Emily could hear the amusement in his voice. She is, I am told, an animal doctor. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Emily felt her cheeks burn. An alien in the front row was literally pointing at her and making sounds that were definitely mocking. Another was already celebrating, acting like the fight was over before it started. The terms remain unchanged, the Lauren continued. If the human defeats the Ravager, she wins everything. If she fails, Earth becomes mine. Let us begin. Kate's hand moved to the controls. Electromagnetic barriers disengaging in 3, 2, 1 now. Emily couldn't see any difference, but somewhere in that arena she knew the constant frequency that had been torturing the Ravager for centuries had just stopped. She counted in her head. 1 Mississippi. 2 Mississippi. 3 Mississippi. The Ravager's posture changed. Its head lifted slightly, ears twitching. For the first time in maybe 300 years, the constant noise in its skull had gone silent. 60 seconds. That's all she had before the barriers reactivated. Emily closed her eyes and took 3 deep breaths, the way her therapist had taught her after her dad died. In through the nose. Out through the mouth. Center yourself. You've got this. The gate opened. Emily walked into the arena and the crowd went completely silent. Every eye in the place was on her as she stepped onto the metal floor in her scuffed work boots and old jeans. She could feel their stares like physical weight. Somewhere up there, her best friend was watching. Somewhere even higher, 500 million beings across the galaxy were watching through live feeds. The Ravager's 6 eyes locked onto her immediately. A low growl rumbled through the arena, so deep Emily felt it in her bones. The creature was even more terrifying up close. Its armored plates looked like they could stop a tank round. Its claws were the size of kitchen knives. One swipe and she'd be dead before she hit the ground. Emily stopped walking 30 feet away from the creature. Then she did something that made the entire crowd gasp. She sat down. Just dropped right there on the cold metal floor, crossed her legs and closed her eyes. The Ravager's growl intensified. Emily could hear its chains rattling as it moved. Her every instinct screamed at her to open her eyes, to see where the danger was coming from. But she kept them shut. Showing fear now would ruin everything. Instead, she started humming. Just a simple tune, something her mom used to sing when Emily couldn't sleep as a kid. The melody was soft, rhythmic, not threatening at all. Just sound. Just presence. Minutes passed. Emily had no idea how many. Time felt weird when you were sitting with your eyes closed, waiting for something that could kill you in a heartbeat. She could hear the Ravager moving, could hear its breathing, heavy and labored. The chains clinked and scraped. It was getting closer. The crowd above started whispering. Emily blocked them out. There was only her breathing, her humming, and the creature slowly approaching. 20 feet away now. Maybe 15. She could smell it, A strange mix of ozone and something metallic. Like pennies and thunderstorms. 10 feet. 5 feet. The Ravager's shadow fell over her. Emily kept her eyes closed. Kept humming. Her heart was doing backflips, but she forced her breathing to stay slow and steady. Animals could sense fear. They could smell it, feel it, read it in every tiny movement. She showed terror now she was dead. Then it came. The psychic scream. Emily had read about it in the reports, but reading about something and experiencing it were completely different things. It felt like someone had shoved broken glass directly into her brain. Pain exploded behind her eyes, sharp and overwhelming. She felt blood trickling from her nose, tasted copper on her lips. Every fiber of her being wanted to fight back, to push the pain away, to run. But she'd learned something from 12 years of therapy after her dad's death, after the depression, after the panic attacks. You can't fight pain. Fighting it just makes it worse. You have to acknowledge it. Feel it. Let it exist without letting it control you. So Emily did something no other challenger had ever done. She didn't resist the psychic assault. She opened herself to it. Let the Ravager's mind touch hers. And what she felt almost broke her heart. The creature wasn't attacking her with anger. It was attacking with pure, absolute terror. Its mind was a storm of fear and pain and loneliness so deep it felt like drowning. 300 years of torture, of isolation, of being forced to kill. 300 years of never knowing kindness, never knowing safety. Just pain and fear and the desperate need to make it stop. Emily felt tears streaming down her face, mixing with the blood from her nose. But she kept humming. And through the pain, through the chaos of the Ravager's terrified mind, she sent back a single emotion. Not pity. Not fear. Just understanding. Just compassion. I see you. I know you're scared. I know you're hurting. I'm not here to hurt you more. The psychic scream faltered. Then stopped. Emily opened her eyes slowly. The Ravager was right there, so close she could have reached out and touched it. Its massive head was tilted to one side, all 6 eyes focused on her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Confusion, maybe. Wonder. Nothing had ever responded to its psychic attack with understanding before. Everything either died or fought back. This tiny creature had done neither. She just listened. She'd felt the Ravager's pain and hadn't run away. Emily did something else that made the crowd gasp. She yawned. It was genuine. The psychic assault had exhausted her, but it was also deliberate. In animal behavior, yawning is a calming signal. A way of saying, I'm not a threat. I'm relaxed. You can relax too. The Ravager's ear-like structures, which had been pinned flat against its skull, twitched forward slightly. Just a fraction. But it was movement. It was response. It was the first sign that maybe, just maybe, this impossible plan might actually work. Up in the observation deck, Kate had both hands pressed against the glass. Tommy stood beside her, his mouth hanging open. Neither of them were breathing. In the royal box, Emperor Thalarin's confident smile had disappeared. He leaned forward, crystalline face reflecting the arena lights. And across the galaxy, 500 million beings watched as a young woman from Earth sat calmly in front of a monster and made it pause. Emily started talking. Not to the Ravager exactly, but just talking out loud like she was having a conversation with herself. Her voice was low and calm, the same tone she'd use with a spooked horse or a frightened cat. So I was working with this wolf yesterday, she said, watching the creature from the corner of her eye. Beautiful animal. Gray and white fur, probably about 4 years old. Someone hit him with their car and just drove off. Left him on the side of the road with a broken leg and massive internal bleeding. The Ravager was still watching her, head tilted. It hadn't moved closer, but it hadn't backed away either. Emily took that as a good sign. She kept talking. He was so scared when we found him. Growling, snapping at anyone who got close. My assistant Jake wanted to tranquilize him from a distance, thought it was too dangerous to approach. But I could see it in his eyes. He wasn't aggressive. He was terrified. Pain does that, you know? Makes you lash out at everyone, even people trying to help. She reached slowly into her jacket pocket. The movement made the Ravager tense, its claws scraping against the floor. Emily froze for a second, then continued the motion even slower. It's okay. Just getting something. No tricks. No weapons. Promise. Her fingers closed around the beef jerky she'd brought from Earth. The xenobiology team had analyzed it 3 times, confirmed it wouldn't poison the creature. The protein structures were compatible. Close enough to what the Ravager species would have eaten on their home planet before it was destroyed. Emily tore off a small piece and tossed it gently. Not at the Ravager but near it. About 6 feet to the creature's left. The jerky landed with a soft sound against the metal floor. The Ravager's 6 eyes tracked the movement. It stared at the food for a long moment, then back at Emily. Its nostrils flared, taking in the scent. Emily could practically see the conflict playing out in its mind. Every meal it had ever received in captivity had been drugged, poisoned, or used as part of some brutal training exercise. Food meant pain. Food meant betrayal. But this smelled different. Clean. Simple. Real. The Ravager moved slowly, keeping its eyes on Emily the whole time. It sniffed the jerky, then touched it with one massive claw. Nothing happened. No shock, no trap, no hidden danger. The creature picked up the jerky and ate it. Emily felt a surge of hope so strong it almost made her cry. Good, right? That's real meat. No chemicals, no weird additives. Just honest food. She tore off another piece, smaller this time, and tossed it a little closer to herself. Maybe 4 feet away. The crowd in the observation decks was going crazy. She could hear the muffled sounds of shouting, arguing, disbelief. Tommy's voice crackled in her hidden earpiece. Emily, it's working. Oh my God, it's actually working. She ignored him. Couldn't afford to get distracted now. The Ravager was approaching again, moving toward the second piece of jerky. Its steps were cautious, deliberate. This time when it ate, Emily could see more of its body. And what she saw made rage boil up in her chest. Scars. Hundreds of them. Burn marks from electric prods crisscrossed its armored plates. Surgical scars where inhibitor chips had been implanted and removed, probably multiple times. Places where armor had been deliberately damaged and healed wrong. This creature had been tortured systematically, scientifically, for centuries. Broken down and rebuilt into a weapon over and over again. Emily forced herself to breathe through the anger. Getting emotional wouldn't help. She needed to stay calm. The Ravager was still watching her, and she could feel its telepathic presence touching her mind again. Not attacking this time. Just curious. Cautious. Testing. You've been hurt so badly, Emily said softly. For so long. And nobody ever asked if you wanted this. Nobody ever gave you a choice. They just took you and used you and turned you into something you were never meant to be. The Ravager made a sound, low and mournful. It wasn't a growl. It was something else entirely. Something that sounded almost like grief. Emily tore off a third piece of jerky and held it in her open palm. She extended her arm, hand low and non-threatening, the same gesture she'd used 1,000 times with nervous dogs and traumatized animals. The universal sign of peace. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to use you. I just want to help. That's all. Just help. The Ravager stared at her outstretched hand for what felt like forever. Emily's arm was starting to shake from holding it out, but she didn't move. This was the moment. This was where it either worked or it didn't. The creature took one step forward. Then another. Its breath washed over Emily's hand, hot and smelling like ozone and metal. She could see her own reflection in its 6 glowing eyes. Could see how small she looked, how fragile. One bite and she was gone. The Ravager's massive head lowered slowly. Its mouth opened, revealing teeth that could tear through steel. Emily's heart was hammering so hard she thought it might explode, but she kept her hand steady. Kept her breathing calm. Kept projecting that single emotion, trust. The creature's tongue, rough and strange, licked the jerky from her palm. Then it settled onto its haunches, bringing its head level with Emily's. They were inches apart now. Close enough that she could see the intelligence in those alien eyes. The pain. The exhaustion. This wasn't a mindless monster. This was a person. Different species, different world, but a person nonetheless. Someone who'd suffered and endured and survived when anyone else would have given up. Emily slowly raised her other hand and placed it on the Ravager's head, right where the armored plates met softer hide. She found a spot and scratched gently. The Ravager's eyes closed halfway. That mournful sound came again, but different this time. Softer. Almost content. Then Emily felt it. The telepathic connection opened fully, but not as an attack. The Ravager was showing her things. Memories. A world with purple skies and silver forests. Others of its kind, smaller, gentler, living in family groups. Playing. Hunting together. Singing. They used to sing, their species, complex harmonies that carried for miles. Then the ships came. Fire from the sky. The forests burning. His family running, screaming, dying. Being captured as a juvenile, too young to understand. The cage. The pain. The endless, endless pain. Being shaped and molded and broken until there was nothing left but rage and fear. Emily was crying openly now, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry this happened to you. She kept scratching that spot, kept her touch gentle and steady. You didn't deserve any of this. None of it. You should have been free. You should have had a life. The Ravager leaned into her touch. And then, from deep in its chest, came a sound that made the entire arena go silent. A deep, rumbling purr. Subsonic, powerful enough to vibrate the floor beneath them. The handlers in the observation deck went rigid with shock. That sound hadn't been heard in over 2 centuries. They'd thought it was impossible, bred out, trained out, beaten out. But here it was. The sound of a creature feeling safe for the first time in 300 years. Emily wrapped her arms around the Ravager's massive neck as much as she could reach. The creature's head pressed against her shoulder. They stayed like that for a long moment, 2 beings from different worlds, connected by pain and healing and the simple act of choosing kindness over violence. Up in the observation deck, Kate had tears running down her face. Tommy was openly sobbing. Even some of the alien observers looked affected, their various emotional responses visible in color changes, posture shifts, and sounds Emily couldn't identify. In the royal box, Emperor Thaloran stared down at the arena floor, his crystalline face completely expressionless. He just lost everything. His empire. His power. His legacy. All because a human girl with dirt under her fingernails had seen what he never could, that the greatest weapon in his arsenal was never a weapon at all. Just a person who needed help. Emily stood up slowly, her legs shaky from sitting for so long. The Ravager stood with her, moving in perfect sync like they'd been partners for years instead of minutes. She kept one hand resting on its shoulder, feeling the warmth of its body through the armored plates. The creature stayed close, pressing against her side like an enormous, deadly puppy. "Come on," Emily said softly. "Let's take a walk." They moved together across the arena floor. Emily didn't guide or command. She just walked and the Ravager walked with her. Its massive claws clicked against the metal with each step, the chains dragging behind it. Emily made a mental note. Those chains needed to come off. The observation decks were absolute chaos. Aliens were shouting in dozens of languages, arguing, pointing, some celebrating, others looking furious. Emily tried to ignore them. She had one more thing to do. One final point to make. She walked the Ravager directly to Emperor Thaloran's observation box. The transparent barrier was thick enough to stop plasma fire, but Emily could see him clearly. His crystalline form had lost its shine, looking dull and gray under the arena lights. She stopped and looked up at him, meeting his eyes. Emily didn't say anything. She didn't need to. Her expression said everything. This is what you destroyed. This is what you wasted. This beautiful, intelligent being. You turned it into a nightmare and called it power. Thaloran stared back, and for just a second, Emily saw something flicker across his alien face. Regret maybe. Or shame. Then it was gone, replaced by cold acceptance. The arena's main screen lit up, displaying legal text in 100 languages. The quantum binding contract was activating. Emily could see the terms scrolling past. Thaloran had lost. The conditions were clear. He had to abdicate. Had to dissolve his military expansion. Had to give humanity everything they'd asked for. But Kate's voice came through the arena speakers before any of that could happen. "We want to make an amendment to our victory terms." The crowd went silent. Thaloran's eyes narrowed. "The contract is sealed. You won. Take your prize." "We don't want your throne," Kate said clearly. "We don't want to rule your empire or dismantle your power structure. That's for your people to decide, not us." She paused. "We want the Ravager. Full custody, complete freedom. And we want every single creature in your battle stables, your training facilities, your combat arenas. Every animal you've broken and used as a weapon. We want them all released to human care." The chamber erupted. Aliens were screaming over each other. A delegate from some species Emily didn't recognize was banging something that looked like a gavel, trying to restore order. Thaloran's advisors were clustered around him, their crystalline bodies flickering with agitation. Tommy's voice crackled in Emily's earpiece. "Kate, what are you doing? We could end his entire empire right now. We could reshape galactic politics." "We're not conquerors, Tommy," Kate replied calmly. "We're healers. That's what makes us different." Thaloran was silent for a long moment. Emily could see him calculating, trying to find some loophole, some way out. But the contract was absolute. Any reasonable demand were the terms he'd agreed to. And this was reasonable. Barely, but it qualified. "Agreed," he finally said, the word sounding like it physically hurt him. "The creatures are yours. All of them." The Ravager made a sound, something between a purr and a questioning chirp. Emily scratched behind its jaw again. "You hear that, buddy? You're coming home with me." "Well, not home exactly. But somewhere safe. Somewhere better. The next few hours were a blur. Medical teams came to examine Emily. She had a nosebleed and a splitting headache from the psychic assault, but nothing serious. Kate handled the paperwork, of which there was apparently a lot. Galactic bureaucracy was even worse than the Earth kind. Emily stayed with the Ravager the whole time. She refused to leave its side, even when doctors insisted she needed rest. The creature seemed calmer with her nearby, and she wasn't about to break that trust now. She sat on the arena floor, back against the Ravager's side, and dozed while lawyers and diplomats argued about transfer protocols. Tommy brought her coffee at some point. Real coffee from Earth, which apparently cost a fortune to ship this far out. "You're insane," he said, but he was smiling. "You know that, right? Completely, totally insane." "Yeah, probably," Emily agreed. "But it worked." "It shouldn't have. By every logical measure, you should be dead right now." Emily looked up at the Ravager, who was watching the activity around them with wary but curious eyes. Logic doesn't account for kindness. Numbers and statistics don't measure compassion. Everyone calculated the Ravager's strength, its kill rate, its psychic power. Nobody thought to calculate its capacity for trust. For healing. Over the next few days, more creatures arrived. Thalarin's empire had been using captured beings as weapons for centuries. Battle cats from desert worlds. Flying predators with razor wings. Something that looked like a cross between a bear and a tank. All of them scared, aggressive, broken. Kate arranged for a terraformed moon to be leased as a rehabilitation center. Emily spent 72 hours straight setting up enclosures, training a hastily assembled team of xenobiologists and animal behaviorists. Some were alien specialists curious about human methods. Others were young people from Earth who'd heard about what happened and wanted to help. The Ravager, Emily still called it that sometimes, though she'd also started calling it Buddy, which made every diplomat in the galaxy cringe, helped in its own way. The other creatures responded to it. Recognized it as someone who'd survived the same trauma. Its presence calmed them in ways human handlers couldn't match. 6 months after the challenge, Emily stood on the observation deck of the new rehabilitation center and watched Buddy playing with 3 other rescued creatures in the main habitat. Playing. An activity it probably hadn't done since it was taken from its home world as a baby. The sight made her cry, but happy tears this time. Kate found her there. "We're getting requests from 20 different species. Everyone wants to learn these techniques. Some want to bring us their own traumatized animals. Others want to send students to study here." "Good," Emily said. "The more people who understand this, the better. You changed everything, you know. The whole galaxy watched you choose compassion over violence. It's making people reconsider a lot of assumptions." Emily shrugged. "I just did what any decent vet would do. Helped a patient who was suffering. That patient was supposed to be an unbeatable killing machine." "That patient was a person who needed help," Emily corrected gently. "There's no such thing as unbeatable. And there's no creature alive that's beyond healing if you're willing to try." Down in the habitat, Buddy noticed Emily and made that rumbling purr sound. Even from here she could feel it. The creature bounded over to the observation window, pressed its massive head against the transparent surface. Emily put her hand up to match its position. Somewhere on Earth, Emily's mom was probably worrying about her. Her little brother was probably still confused about why she'd suddenly left for space. Her friends back home probably thought she'd lost her mind. They were probably right. But standing here watching a creature that was supposed to be humanity's doom playing like a puppy, Emily knew she'd made the right choice. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't fighting. It's refusing to fight. It's looking at something terrifying and choosing to see the person underneath the fear. Emperor the Lauren, watching from his exile, finally understood what he'd lost. Not just his empire or his power. He'd lost 300 years of relationship with an incredible being. 300 years of trust and companionship that could have been replaced with fear and violence. And for what? To prove strength? To maintain control? Humanity had proven something far more powerful. That kindness isn't weakness. That compassion isn't foolishness. That sometimes the strongest thing you can do is extend your hand to something that could destroy you, and trust that they'll choose not to. The galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. Not as primitive newcomers or potential conquests, but as the species crazy enough to hug a monster and make it purr. And honestly, Emily was okay with that reputation. She scratched the window where Buddy's head pressed against it. "Who's a good interdimensional nightmare beast?" "You are." "Yes, you are." Kate laughed. Tommy groaned. And somewhere in the observation deck, a dozen alien researchers frantically took notes on human behavior, trying to understand how any of this was possible. The answer was simple, really. It wasn't about technology or weapons or strategy. It was about seeing the soul in everything you meet, even things with teeth. Especially things with teeth. That was humanity's real superpower. And the galaxy was just starting to figure it out.